In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. Understanding the Bible as metaphysical or through an astrotheology lens versus literal is a really interesting discussion. And I personally have been all over the spectrum on my understanding and beliefs on this topic. I was raised in a religious tradition that was pretty darn literal. And then as a young adult, in my 20s, I dug pretty deeply into more of, I guess, what you would call the metaphysical side of things and understanding. And I had reached a point where I wasn't sure I would ever gain as much clarity as I wanted regarding those two sides of the coins. But when I discovered that I could read the scriptures, read the Bible, just our traditional Bible, not even any extra biblical text, just take our canonical Bible as is and read it at face value in English without any extra knowledge, just read it at face value. And I could follow what the scriptures say and map it out on the physical land for myself. That was the most grounding thing for me, because I already knew that the common narrative we had been taught surrounding, well, everything but the Middle East and all that, like I just knew like something was off. I wasn't quite willing to buy into it all. And seeing that I could map things out literally point by point by point in exquisite detail was absolutely paradigm shifting for me. And yet, I don't personally feel that coming to the understanding that the Bible is extremely literal and realistic, in at least most of its stories and passages. I mean, there are, of course, allegorical stories as well, but understanding how literal it is, I don't feel cancels out or negates this conversation, because the word logos was in the beginning. Logos, the word, spoke creation into existence, and then came down and became creation, became one of us, and forever, for all eternity, wed the physical to the spiritual, wed heaven to earth, wed humanity to God. And since he spoke the creation into existence, it only makes sense that creation reflects the pattern of his being. So having the eyes to see and understand that, yes, the cosmos reflect the biblical stories, that our human bodies reflect the biblical stories, that the biblical stories are an exact reflection of the physical earth. I don't think that either negates or cancels out that the Bible is literal. I think it's both and. And to me, that is the most amazing, beautiful thing. God is so encompassing that it can be both literal and metaphysical and I can't think, it's all big words. That the stories in the Bible can so perfectly reflect the way the stars and the planets move in our solar system, that the stories in the Bible can so perfectly reflect the way our our human bodies work. There's stories about the pineal gland and the way the world is built. That doesn't mean it's not literal. I think that perhaps God sent his son, he became man, in his life, in the creation that he spoke into existence, is forever reflecting him and praising him, and his whole creation is calling out in reflection and praise and glory to who he is. And that is why it can be both literal and not literal, because it is literal, but it's also a perfect reflection of his being. And so everything we see is going to be a metaphysical or astrotheology or allegory or parable reflection of who he is. I don't know if I explained that very well. I hope that makes a little sense. That's where my thought process is, because I've been on both sides of the coin, and at this point I don't think it's either or. I think it's both.